When most people hear the word lightning, they probably think of bright flashing lights in the sky. But us here in this room, we all probably think of, well, payments.
But Lightning is a lot more than just payments. It's podcasts, it's games, it's the potential for so much more. So our next panel is talking about just that, Lightning business models. And this one is moderated by Stacy Herbert of Zonte Capital. She's been on the stage a few times, so please give her another warm welcome back.
All right. I will be joined on stage by, let's see, first of all, Patrick Zahnd. Come on out. He's the CEO and co-founder of lipa.
Slightly more from the,
right?
Yeah.
Ben Cousens, Chief Strategy Officer at ZEBEDEE. I definitely know this business model. Thank you very much. Oscar Merry, CEO of Fountain. And Desiree Dickerson, CEO of THNDR Games. Yay, Des. So my experience with Lightning is actually with Des. Des, you were there that night. I was one of the first 99 to get that Lightning torch. Remember back in the reckless days? And I have to say, I received the torch and then couldn't figure out how to pass it on. And it took me about 12, 14 hours to figure out how to do it. And everybody on Twitter was yelling at me that I was running off with the $230 in the Lightning wallet at that time, and the Lightning torch. So I want to talk about, like, there's a lot of FUD. There's a lot of negative information out there about Lightning and whether or not it can scale, or if it does scale Bitcoin, or if there's any business model in it. So I want to know, by the end of this panel, if you are the El Salvador of the Bitcoin business model, the Lightning business model, because there's a lot of FUD about El Salvador, and it's not true, and I've seen it from the ground. But in terms of Lightning, like, introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and why on Lightning, why use Lightning, and why it makes sense for your business. Start with you.
Okay. So I'm Patrick, as we heard. So
can you move your mic a little bit closer?
Better?
Yes.
Better. So I'm Patrick. I'm a co-founder and the CEO at lipa. And what we do basically is we want to make the use of Bitcoin very easy for everybody. So the businesses should be able to accept Bitcoin, and also everyone should be able to pay with it and send money like Bitcoin to the friends. And why we use Lightning is quite simple, because Bitcoin on-chain is too slow, too expensive, and there needs to be a solution, of course, for that, so that we can scale. And until now, we can see that Lightning scales. So
Lightning scales. Okay, Ben Cousens, tell us about your company and why.
Yeah, so I'm Ben. I'm Chief Strategy Officer at ZEBEDEE. We're a fintech that serves the games industry. We use Lightning to enable microtransactions in video games for games developers who might not have any clue how to use this infrastructure or how to use Bitcoin. But that is an industry that thrives on transaction sizes of 75 cents, 50 cents, etc. Lightning is a perfect instrument for that, and we're seeing that in the uptake from the games industry.
Oscar, Mary, I know your business model, but
yeah, so I'm Oscar Merry. I'm the co-founder of Fountain. Fountain is a podcast app built on the Lightning Network, which allows you to stream money to your favorite podcasts as you listen. The reason Lightning works so well for podcasts is because of the open nature of RSS. So having a podcast is just like having a website. You can self-host your RSS feed, and with Lightning, you can self-host your own Lightning node as well. So when you pay a podcaster on Fountain, some podcasters have custodial wallets, some podcasters are running their own RSS feed and Lightning node, but the payment system still works. And we can stream money per minute, which is, for Lightning, that's the only solution that allows us to do that.
Des Dickerson.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. I am Desiree. I am CEO and co-founder at THNDR Games, and we build mobile games that reward users with Bitcoin or Satoshis. And yeah, micropayments open up a world of possibilities in games, especially for us mobile games. We're really able to incentivize engagement and retention with our users by rewarding them with some of the revenue that we're making off of the ads that they watch and also the in-app purchases that they make within our games. And yeah, we actually consider ourselves more of an adoption company because we really consider gaming to be the top of the funnel for introducing new audiences to Bitcoin and to Lightning in a safe, fun, and familiar way. We've all downloaded a mobile game, we've all downloaded an app, and it's really a great way to introduce the world to Bitcoin. And yeah, so we consider ourselves more of an adoption company.
If it weren't for Bitfinex providing 25% of the liquidity for the Lightning Network, would your companies be able to exist as they do?
Yes. I mean, I think the Lightning Network scaling was the lead criticism in its early development. I remember reading a lot about it being accused of being vaporware, but we were actively building and developing on it and seeing the opposite. I think the truth is when in gaming, like Des and I are working in, the transaction sizes are so small that you're not exactly in need of millions of dollars worth of liquidity to send value to a user. The average transaction size that we're processing is 4 cents in dollar terms. We're just doing millions of them. So, when the question comes up of like how much liquidity does the network need, it does depend on your use case. It's still not great to send, north of $1,000 equivalents on the network, but that's changing all the time. It is becoming more and more successful as the liquidity keeps growing. So yeah, I don't really think we've ever had that concern. I don't know if anyone else has.
I think also, outside of just like liquidity and the amount of Bitcoin in the network is just optimizing the network for routing, right? And that's been something that's been building ever since I've started in Lightning and since the Lightning Network kind of its advent. So I think, as the network and the community grows, we see so many people building like amazing infrastructure tools for like node management and really optimizing routing. And I think that's just as important, or maybe even more important, than the amount of liquidity on the network.
And Patrick, about your business model, how important is the? I know he's saying like it's 4 cents, 5 cents, so that doesn't matter necessarily for that. But the strength of the network itself, of Lightning itself, like if the liquidity providers are not earning income, because Bitfinex isn't making money off this, like they're providing it for free essentially to Lightning Network, and if they needed to earn money from it, it could be a different situation for those companies building on Lightning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I think it's already bringing us to the question almost business models on
exactly.
on Lightning. And I talked to my co-founders, and this was one of the big topics we had, like liquidity. Charging for it in the future could be a perfect model for business. Yeah, so. I think it's also just logical that it will develop in that direction if Lightning sets off, like gets much bigger.
And for Fountain?
Yeah, I think there's actually room for the fees to grow. I don't think that's a problem. If you take podcasting, for example, as a vertical, I'm sure everybody here that's listened to a podcast has heard the words, hey guys, if you love the show, support me on Patreon. Patreon takes a 10% cut, and right now Fountain charges a 4% fee for podcasters using our wallet. So I think there's room for the actual fees on the Lightning Network to grow, and I think that's healthy, and there's plenty of room for it.
Okay, so again, outside of your companies, the actual Lightning Network itself, the other problem for Lightning, of course, is U.S. regulators and the fear of them ruling that you're vast, that virtual asset service providers. We already see that with Coinbase. We see it with Cash App. They're not routing any of their payments outside of the U.S. So how does that impact your business? Do you plan for that in terms of the risk to your business model of the U.S. calling you basically money vast? Desiree.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like we're always thinking about it, but like even more like greater scrutiny that we see is keeping our apps in the App Store and Google Play. Like that's something we have to think about every day. Like obviously we're really thinking about like the long-term regulatory landscape, but thankfully there's a ton of like really great lobbying that's going on. And again, like we're totally non-custodial right now, and we really are only doing payments one way. So we've been in our current state, we're okay, but like with the App Store and Google Play, like that's for us like much harder to kind of navigate the changes that happen. Like they literally change every single day. So that's something that we really kind of work to, make sure we're always available in the App Store and Google Play.
I mean, but all your services, like you're offering services on a network, you're saying like Lightning needs to exist, but like if the underlying thing, and maybe you don't want to answer, but like on Fountain, okay, if the situation changes where Lightning can't scale because the United States declares it a VASP, like what happens to Fountain? What happens to you? Like I know you yourself, you're like, well, our users are just sending Lightning. I don't know how they get their sats or where they're distributing it. It doesn't matter to me, but it does, right? Because if you're building a business model where you're relying on Bitfinex to provide the liquidity, you're also relying on the U.S. regulators not to declare it, a VASP for all these node operators. So, like, does that matter?
I think it probably does. I think most likely what would happen is the network would maybe just become fragmented and you just have to essentially set up separate services in each jurisdiction. I hope that doesn't happen because one of the powerful things about the Lightning Network for developers right now is it's so easy just to use programmable money as a tool to create new experiences. I think I'm optimistic that the benefits that we're seeing for developers and ultimately for the products that they build are so obvious. Like in podcasting, there's not another solution that allows us to do this. So I think any regulators need to actually look at the use cases, look at the solutions, and once you explain it to them, it's quite obvious. I mean, for podcasting, yeah, like there's no other technology that can do this across the fragmented open RSS ecosystem. So yeah, I'm optimistic, maybe naively so, but.
I mean, if I can jump in, we felt that this would be a regulated activity at our inception. We registered ourselves with FinCEN as a money services business. We are acquiring money transmitter licenses. We provide compliance as a service as a result. So we are a payment rail that a game developer can build upon, and we provide compliance guarantees around that.
Okay, so that's interesting. What about your company?
Yeah, when speaking about the US, we are not in the US market at the moment. The biggest risk at the moment for us is basically our apps, because they're in the App and Play Store, which are in the US. So it's one of the huge impacts that we could actually directly have from regulation in the US. But speaking of regulation also here, for us, we really depend on regulation. I think it's actually an opportunity. Regulation, when more regulation will happen, this will also mean it's more accepted by the general public. We can see this with the businesses that are actually regulated and are already existing. They have a bigger trust in the general public, and yeah, so that's actually an opportunity. But yeah. If it would be becoming illegal, yeah, then we would have our business model will probably be quite, destroyed by that. So,
to jump back in, I mean, I think It's a really great point, Stacy. I mean, it's something I think we're all at risk in. I mean, like, I feel like you and Max like really champion this, where like we're not going to stop building because these regulators can't make up their damn minds, that they're constantly, spewing FUD and always like threatening to like thwart our business advances. So it's like, I think the best thing that we can do is be up here on this stage, be working on the same problems and build together and actually like change the world before they can actually make any regulation. I mean, I think it is, yeah, you're right. There's so much risk. Like, we really just don't know. And we're going to have to react at the end of the day the best we can to maintain our businesses and feed our employees. But, I don't know. I feel like we can't let it stop us at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I see in El Salvador, it's obviously a huge place for Lightning payments. Everybody uses it on their Chivo wallet or Bitcoin Beach wallet. Bitcoin Beach, El Zonte is like the forefront of Lightning payments. I see this, I understand this, and I understand why it works for micropayments. But the underlying thing, the fact that the issue of how hard it is to make money, right? That you need these exchanges, you need Bitfinex to subsidize it. You need, you're competing with shitcoins because shitcoins will pay somebody like Bitfinex 2 to 4 or 5 million. All these exchanges make money to list these because Bitcoin doesn't have a marketing budget. So at the end of the day, your businesses are built on top of something that people are subsidizing the rail for you. And the U.S. is always looking for a way to target Bitcoin. They can't, but if they can target the node operators or anybody operating on Lightning, it seems like a weak point. It seems like a vulnerability to the entire how it operates. Yeah.
I mean, if Lightning's adoption parallels Bitcoin's adoption, you'll have regulated on-ramps that, in this room, regular users don't necessarily think like Bitcoiners, and KYC is trust for them, right? They're like, oh, I can rely on this because it's doing something I'm used to doing with my bank account. So therefore, this is clearly there's some element of trustworthiness here. But the beauty of Bitcoin is that it's open and permissionless, right? So anyone can enter that network, and I think the critical thing is always maintaining that ability to take ownership of your money. But what's great about in Lightning is that, and there's two business models really. There's the business model of running nodes and operating on that network, and there's the business model of companies that build on top of the network. But for the node operators, there are individuals out there, individual people who are pulling in, $25,000 a month, routing very aggressively, and this is documented. That's a phenomenal incentive for an individual, not a company necessarily. And when you can do it all over Tor, and it's very hard to identify, you might have, yes, huge KYC'd nodes that are compliant entrance points into the network, but the global distribution of the liquidity is through something that is far harder to get even the vaguest grip on. And I think the growth in liquidity locked in Lightning right now, and the growth in nodes that are being added to the network every single week, is testament to that.
I mean, Tor has been under a DDoS attack for the last few months. So if you're relying on that to protect you from the U.S.,
I mean, it's a fair point. I don't think anyone is saying that Tor is super reliable yet. I find it very interesting that there are now recent projects to marry Tor with Lightning payments, where you are incentivized to set up Tor relays through Satoshis, right? It seems very logical to me that in the near term, Tor and Bitcoin will marry.
Sure. But in terms of your business models, Des, you worked at Lightning Labs before, so you were there, for the growth of this. Like, you were the first to build this. Like, when you were designing this, like, were these thoughts that you were entertaining at that time?
Just like the regulatory piece?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just not been enough done on it yet, right? Like, there's not been enough. There hasn't been enough any really real regulation on it yet, right? So I think, I think the assumption was and still is that node runners aren't money transmitters. This in the end, hopefully the regulators will get will get this. I think that's probably the worst view to take. Like, we should really assume that it's going to be an adversarial take. But, you know, I think, yeah, I mean, I think in building the early beginnings of the Lightning Network and everyone who was working on it, it was just, and maybe this was, you know, immature to think, but it's like, you know, we're just going to build, and, you know, regulators are going to do what regulators do. Like, thankfully, there are people who are trying to work with regulators, but yeah, we're just going to build irregardless, and what happens. We're going to put the tech out there, and then, yeah, I mean, I think the regulation will catch up with us. Whether we plan for it or not, I don't think would make that big of a difference, because, I mean, I don't know. I mean, for me, it's like it could go either way at this point, right?
So in terms of Thunder Games, like, how does it drive adoption for Lightning or Bitcoin? Like, what do you?
Our games specifically, I mean, so our games driving Lightning adoption? Or yeah, I think our games are really, like I said, the top of the funnel for adoption for Lightning and for Bitcoin in general. There's a lot of people here, but in the grand scheme of the world, like, a lot of people don't care about Bitcoin. Most people don't. Most people are afraid of it. And, you know, asking someone to go download a wallet that might be a scam and, you know, upload their passport and then actually put their hard-earned cash into something like a very volatile asset is a lot to ask for someone who doesn't care about sound money, who doesn't have the time to buy into this narrative we're all so passionate about. So if we could simply offer the world something that is so simple, it's fun, it feels safe, and they're actually not having to put any of their own money on the line, and they're simply playing. They're simply playing, earning Bitcoin, and then they finally have skin in the game, and they have their first sats. We're totally non-custodial. We're wallet agnostic, so you can take one Satoshi. You can win one sat in our game, and you can cash out to any wallet of your choice. And we're very soon, we're, launching a bunch of partnerships where you can actually engage in the rest of the Lightning circular economy, where you can go to Albi and the browser extension and tip people on Twitch. You can cash out to ZEBEDEE and, feed into a lot of, like, the games that are using ZEBEDEE's tools. And there's so much potential. Or Fountain, like, tip people on the Fountain podcast. But people get games. Games feel safe. It's something that everybody's doing on a large scale. So we really view this as like, hey, you might not be someone who's going to go download, a non-custodial wallet. You might not be someone who's going to run your own node, but you have to have that first experience that hooks you. And that is what we really, truly believe that we're providing with Thunder, because you earn those first sats, and that's like the first taste of one of the most addicting things that we all know and, like, have been living on the stage in this audience for so long. So if we can hook people, give them that skin in the game, we are exposing them to the rest of what everyone else in this world of Bitcoin is building. And, like, we want to expose everybody's tools to the world, and games are the first step.
And so, Oscar, like, I make a podcast, and this is, everybody in Bitcoin seems to be a podcaster, actually. So we've all heard of Fountain, and that's a way to stream it. But who are your actual users? Like, why are they not using PayPal or Patreon instead? And also, like, how much experience or knowledge do they need of Bitcoin or Lightning in order to just be a fan of the show? They're not Bitcoiners or anything. They just like to listen to Max and Stacy in our podcast.
Yeah, it's a great question. Obviously, we've had a lot of adoption and support from the Bitcoin community, and that's great. But for me personally, the thing that I'm most excited about, and it touches on what Des was just talking about, is we're starting to break out into mainstream podcasting. We have podcasters using our wallet to accept sats and messages from their audience. And to be honest, they don't care about Bitcoin. They don't care about any of this. They're just using the Lightning Network because it solves a problem for them. Specifically in podcasting, you can't get paid across multiple apps. We all know the podcast landscape is fragmented. Probably in this audience, there's 10 plus different podcast apps. And so what podcasters have to do is accept payments away from the actual listening experience. Because the Lightning Network gives us programmable money as a tool, we can actually integrate the payment into the listening experience, which is it's just a much better product experience. And I think, gaming, podcasting, these are just two verticals and two examples of where programmable money and the Lightning Network can actually onboard people to Bitcoin, not because they care about the philosophy behind it, obviously we're big believers in that, but because it's just solving a problem for them and creating a new product experience. So yeah, I would encourage people to think about how the Lightning Network can create new product experiences in different verticals, because I'm sure there's a lot more to come.
So how would that work for somebody like Joe Rogan? Like, what would a Joe Rogan audience member, like, they're not in Bitcoin. He obviously doesn't understand Bitcoin very well. Like,
so this is a great question. So for any podcasters in the audience, if you want to get set up to start receiving sats, it's just a couple of clicks on Fountain. You can claim your show and you can start receiving sats from any app, not just Fountain. You can see messages, analytics on the payments.
What do you
things
mean,
like
any
that.
app? Like iTunes?
Other podcasting 2.0 enabled Lightning apps, or you can just you can have an open source versions of this. But for somebody like Joe Rogan, and this touches on another point that I think is important, if somebody at Joe Rogan's scale approached us right now, we would say no to them because the fiat on-ramp solutions are not there to onboard the mainstream. It's too difficult. Like, even our guide right now involves downloading another wallet, buying through another third party, and it needs to be much more seamless than that for the mainstream audience to be able to onboard to Lightning. So there's a lot more to do in terms of services and tools for developers. Obviously, companies like ZEBEDEE are doing a lot there, but yeah, we're not quite there for the mainstream, but I think we will be there very soon, so very excited. Joe Rogan obviously is exclusive on Spotify, but maybe he hears this and reach out and we'll see what we can do.
ZEBEDEE, are you similar to THNDR Games, or like, what's your actual business model?
We would provide the tooling behind THNDR Games. So obviously Des and team are Bitcoiners and fully understand how to use all the tools and services, but the vast majority of the games industry has no idea what they're looking at, right? And they're being inundated with not just messages from the Bitcoin community, but from all other altcoins as well, and the wider just payments ecosystem. Everyone's kind of trying to stick things down their throat and see what sticks, right? And so what we realized quite quickly is you have to abstract away everything. You have to just present them with something which is plug it in and it works exactly as you would expect it to. No knowledge needed, no Bitcoin knowledge needed. As Oscar and Des both said, I think one of the things anyone working in Lightning is very aware of is that this tool onboards mainstream users. Those mainstream users do not give a toss about Bitcoin. They just don't. Like, they really don't. If you give it to them, they want to sell it. It's a hot potato that they've got hold of. So we focus on just making it no big deal, super simple to plug it in. You can send and receive value between players, from game to player, from player to game. It works as intended, and then you can see the results in how the engagement and the monetization of your application literally 5 to 10x's, because now there is value transfer, there is money inherent to that application. And we've seen great success there. I mean,
The value, go over that again. 10x's from what? Like,
so let's say what Des is doing, right? I'm sure you've seen exactly the same thing. If you take your ad revenue that you're generating from your game, and you take 10% of it and you reward it back to your players, you just distribute it. Those players who were previously earning nothing for the time and they were spending in the game are now collecting a financial reward. They play more. They play like 5 to 10 times more every day. We've seen average session times in very simple games like Sudoku go from like 5-minute play times when someone's waiting for a bus to like 1 hour a day. Like serious jumps, right? And for a games developer, all of that is more profit, right? Because they're monetizing through advertising. So when you get that increase in engagement to that degree, it radically changes the profitability profile of the application in question. So yeah, we've got like 25 to 30 developers building on us now. It's working really seamlessly. We couldn't be happier with the Lightning Network.
So this is for like, I mean, the last time I played games was like Nintendo. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's like mainstream games like that
Yeah.
you're working with?
Yeah, we're really seeing, and I know Des is as well, and you're seeing it in podcasting, like you're reaching a demographic that was never addressed by Bitcoin before. You know, in gaming, casual mobile audiences skew female, skew older. You've got to think of like someone in the middle of the US who's got some free time, they've got a boring desk job, they play games for fun. Suddenly that game gives them this thing, Bitcoin, that they've seen and heard about, but they've got no idea what it is. And sure, they'll take it for free. And then they realize they're getting it. They tell their kids, like, hey, mom got Bitcoin, you know, and then they start playing more. So it's a very, very powerful tool for introducing Bitcoin to massively more normal audiences. And gaming audiences are huge, right?
Yeah.
Like Fortnite has 100 million players. Call of Duty has 100 million players. That's like magnitudes larger than El
Are
Salvador.
they into Lightning already? Like, not yet.
Not yet. We're
You're
working on
that.
it. Yeah.
But so when the gamers are playing, they see they're receiving Bitcoin, or do they?
Yeah, they're receiving it in the game in real time. And then when they want to cash out, they just tap and they can send to a Lightning-enabled wallet.
I'm like seriously concerned with most of our users with how much they're playing our games. I feel bad. Like their productivity is like very low in real life. But
Well, we didn't have this when I played Game Boy, so I don't,
But think about it. Like we just published a solitaire game. It's so simple. I mean, it is beautiful. It is like the sexiest solitaire you'll ever play. So download it. But I mean, it's like it's so simple, and people see it. Like, why did they come to this? It's like I can play solitaire and watch ads and just play solitaire and win absolutely nothing, fake money, or I can play solitaire and yeah, it's not a lot of money. I'm not going to like pay my electrical bill, which some people do get upset about, but they can just play and win a little bit of Bitcoin, which is like, I heard my kid talk about Bitcoin, and it's like, yeah, we have grandmas who are playing, and they're like, might as well, if I'm going to spend 2 hours a day on solitaire, I'm going to win a little bit of Bitcoin, and it works. Like, our solitaire game was like number 21 in the App Store in the card category, and like we're a tiny little startup. So I mean, what we're all doing up here is like really, really exposing the world to Bitcoin.
And
Absolutely.
And what is your business model? Like, what does your company do?
Yeah, I'm still stuck with you saying.
I know.
Saying about people don't really care about Bitcoin. I mean, I also don't really care about Swiss francs when I go shopping or in a restaurant. I care about my experience. And on the other side, the business, they care about job to be done. And their job to be done with money is to receive it. And they have plenty of problems with the current system, which has not seen any innovation. So the whole industry of payments has not seen huge steps forward. It's just still the same as many years ago, just more digital. But still the same problems, and that's high fees. It's not working properly. I think everyone in here had this many times. Swipe or tap your card, not working. And many other problems. I think you can all list a lot of them. And for the business, this is actually really horrible because this means extra work for them. If it's not working and it's somehow stuck, they need to call the bank, spending time, and there's plenty of problems. And I think for all of our cases, we need to come from the problem that the people have and try to solve it, and not just hammer Bitcoin on it or whatever solution, but see where is the problems and then see the fit. And if there is a fit, and we can see many places where there is a fit for Bitcoin, actually solve a problem. And
so what problem does lipa?
Yeah, so I just mentioned, right? So we create our service is just making it easy for a business to receive Bitcoin payments. So one of the big problems for very small businesses is the high fee and also the minimum fee. So small payments, I mean, you can see in many places, minimum payment for credit card is 10 euros or something. Mm-hmm. So that's because of this minimum payment fee. And So fee is one problem, then it's not really reliable, and there is actually not really a choice. So you have several players, but it's all the same. So what you can choose is a little bit of usability, but you are still having basically the same system that you are using for receiving payments. So
Which you're only in Germany?
we are mostly in the German-speaking world, so DACH it's called, so Switzerland, Germany, and Austria. And yeah, so my point that I want to make is just for all the businesses, the problem is where we should start and not the solution. And yeah, coming back to us, we see that there is a big struggle for businesses receiving money, and as the smaller the business gets, the bigger the issues. And yeah, helping there, I think it's not only lipa doing this. There's many competitors in the market, and I think this is also the strength of Lightning. It's not just like big monopoly, 2 or 3 competitors, and then you need to choose between 3. But you actually have a lot of different choices, and you can go with whatever suits you best. And
It seems like that problem would be getting worse, especially in Europe, where a lot of countries are going totally cashless. So for a small merchants,
it's worse. Yes, when there was the COVID pandemic, the cashless payment skyrocketed, and it was actually really bad for the businesses. And people don't realize what the fee is. Actually, it's a Revolut and all those apps will tell you 0 fee, but it doesn't tell you that there is this so-called credit card tax, which is about around 2.5% in Western Europe, and it can be much more. I talked to a guy in Turkey in my holiday, and he said sometimes it's 8% just to receive a payment. And yeah, with the
I think
a
it's
very
the same in El Salvador too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so most businesses that now work with Lightning are around 1% fee, so that's already a drastic reduction. So that's great for the businesses.
So in the last few moments here, I want to just like quickly go through the roadmap ahead for Lightning. Like, how do you see it developing going forward, and what do you need to change or improve going forward? Let's start with Des, because I know like your knowledge of Lightning is quite deep based on being at Lightning Labs first.
Oh man, yeah, it's I mean, going from like 2018 to like no payments routing, like just being excited when a payment, like a strong payment would be routed through the network was one thing. So now it's like, I mean, like we see like almost nearly like 100% success rate for our payments, which is just absolutely incredible. We're super excited about, you know, kind of the work that, you know, my former team at Lightning Labs is doing with Taro and, you know, issuing assets on top of Taro. I think there's going to be a lot of cool things to come down the line. But I think at the end of the day, like I look at, you know, our little community of builders, and it's like so small, right? You know, like just like everyone here is, you know, we have so many users from the Bitcoin community, and we can see them when we launch a new game. We literally can tell who they are, and they're very excited. But, you know, we all have this kind of ceiling that we're bumping up against. And I think what I would see rather like, yeah, there's like a lot of really cool tech stuff coming down the pipeline, but I think what's even more important and I'm more excited about is like people really, really focusing on adoption. I mean, and that's what we're focused on. They all are. Like 80% of our users are totally new to Bitcoin. And I think that's what we need to see, because like no matter what tech we built, like no matter how much we optimize the network, if more people aren't using it, it's never going to matter, right? So I think at the end of the day, like adoption, I know it's not technical, but I think that's the biggest piece that we're missing right now.
Yeah, I'd agree, and I would just say again that for us, the fiat on-ramp is the most important part. Like if you're a developer building an application that requires Bitcoin on the Lightning Network and you're targeting users that have never purchased Bitcoin, they don't have an account with anybody or they don't have a wallet, the ability to just buy some Bitcoin in the app to quickly get started is a critical piece, especially for retention. Like for Fountain, our retention for people that actually send a payment to one of their favorite podcasts, it's an amazing experience, and the retention is incredibly high once they get over that step. But right now, because of the lack of the fiat on-ramp and the tools around that, it's quite difficult to get them over that first step. They have to download another app. They have to buy through a third-party service. Then sometimes they'll have to wait for an on-chain confirmation. So I think the tooling around fiat on-ramp specifically is, for me, the thing I'm most looking forward to seeing develop, and just the UX around it as well, just smooth out.
Well, the fiat on-ramps are also difficult for like most of the world because they're unbanked. So if you're in a micropayments world of Lightning, it seems like you need some other way around that completely. And you, Oscar? Oh, sorry.
Ben, don't worry.
You're Ben.
Yeah, don't worry. I mean, we feel incredibly optimistic about Lightning and where it's going. I think the growth in the network is very healthy. I mean, I know we don't say certain words here, but if you look at the broad macro environment in crypto assets, the Lightning Network is the only chart going up and to the right. It feels very good to be working in Lightning right now. I'm most excited and hopeful for more ordinary developers who've got nothing to do with Bitcoin, realizing that they want to put money in their service, and they choose Lightning to do it because it's instant, fast, and super cheap. When I do look ahead at challenges, I think fiat is, like on and off ramps, is a pain point. I'd really strongly agree there. We are one of the only sort of significantly funded, etc., companies out there dealing in Bitcoin, and we don't do on-chain for UX reasons. So you've got to get in and out of us through, Lightning-enabled services that do fiat on and off ramps, and exchanges have been painfully slow there. They don't see volume because they don't realize that Lightning is Bitcoin. There is no difference. We should see more coming. BitGo have made a move to provide Lightning infrastructure. Obviously, they provide a lot of infrastructure to exchanges, so I'm optimistic. But really, it's developers, developers, developers. That's what I want to see more of.
Mm-hmm. And for you?
I can just say +1 for most, but I want to say something very practical. One problem is that when you scan a QR code, Lightning, and then, as a user, it's not the right code. You just get a really funny message in most apps, and I think usability is for me one of the most important things to work on at the moment. Beside all the cool features that are coming, but usability, so the users knows what is happening and knows what to do. I think this would help, and I can see also in this Lightning Halloween that's happening after here in the Tuscany. Mm-hmm. That's one of the topics which we will actually work on. The whole messaging around, not only for QR code scanning, I just want to say something practical, but also just error messages. It's really hard to understand what's going on for somebody who is not deep into Bitcoin, and I think that would help tremendously.
Well, I mean, based on the Lightning Torch, it was only 3 years ago, and then showing up in El Salvador, where it's only in the past year that they have Bitcoin adoption, and seeing everybody using Lightning is quite extraordinary compared to the first 3 years of Bitcoin. So congratulations on that, because you had a lot to do with that.
I still have the Lightning Torch mug, and I see you on there, Stacy.
Yeah, I know,
Always
I have it.
thinking of you.
Well, thank you very much, and for joining us.